Cannot hear you.
Not it. Okay, let me check. What happened to my... Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So just give me 2 minutes. I'll take the file and then we can start the class. Okay. Okay, so now we can start the class. Okay, now we actually, yeah, I'll start from... See, this unit 1 explains the force field parameters and model. Now, force field is nothing but the mathematical representation of a molecular geometry.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry for interruption, ma'am. Are you sharing PPT?
Yes, I think I stopped. I mean, since it is not shared because I unknowingly disconnect my line. So yeah. So to begin with, the course, we have to know about the representation of a molecule in a three-dimensional geometry. Okay. So your syllabus is designed in such a way that first you will understand how you are going to design the three-dimensional geometry. Maybe it's a chemical molecule or a biomolecule or whatever. So what are the things behind this to represent a model? And what are the models available so far in a biomolecular field or in a chemistry field or whatever? So we are going to talk about in the unit 1, the representation of a molecule in a three-dimensional geometry. When we say the representation of a molecule in a three-dimensional geometry, we worry about the representation of atoms, the representation of the interaction between the atoms. So, like it's kind of build up. One atom and diatomic system, triatomic system, and it will go like 4, 5, and n number of atoms. For example, if you take a protein, the protein is having, suppose it is having some 10 residues, and each residue has its own atoms. So you have to represent everything, okay? So how you are concatenating the atoms? By interaction, by direct interaction, shared interaction, that is covalent bond or ionic bond or hydrogen bond. You know, there are n number of bonds that also we will study. And so there is a direct interacting atoms, indirectly interacting atoms. How we are going to represent it, all these things we are going to talk in the unit 1. As a preliminary information, okay, we begin with, you know, the system what we know already. You know, all of you must be having some experience in playing with a ball, right? Okay, so let us all of you imagine that you have a ball and you are throwing it towards the wall, and then the ball is bouncing back to you. Okay, so what is the system now? The ball is free and it is coming out of your hand. Okay, it is not connected to any system, and the ball is traveling in the air and hitting against a wall and coming back. It's a bounce, it is bouncing back. Okay, but now you imagine the same system where you have already hooked a spring in the wall. So one end of the spring is hooked in the wall. The other end of the spring is attached to the ball. Okay. Now you try to give some force on the ball towards the wall. Okay. That is, you are giving some pressure, because what is the pressure and the force relation? Any of you?
Force by area equal to pressure.
Pressure. Can you say this is a force by area? This force has, definitely this is a force, but when you talk about this pressure, you should say that thrust by area, you know, definitely thrust is the force, but it has some different, what is that? One unique feature. What is that? So pressure is the perpendicular force acting on the area. The perpendicular force, that is the direct impact on the surface, that we say as a thrust. You all agree?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So definitely it's a force by area only, but now when it comes as a pressure, you know, we only consider the perpendicular force acting on the surface. So we say this is a thrust. Though thrust by area is the pressure. So here what we are going to do, we are giving some pressure or we are applying some force because it is perpendicular to the ball and toward the wall. Okay. What happens is, here you can see in the picture, you can see 3 figures. One is A to F, another one is B to F, another one is C to F. You know, there is one dotted line which is coming parallel to the wall. Okay. What the issue is, this dotted line is the standard spring length plus the dia of the ball. Okay. Suppose if you say, if you take the picture B, and if you see the black arrow towards the wall is starting, this is the standard position of the ball. So what happens, to begin with this event, you are stretching this ball towards little away from the wall. So when you are applying a force against the wall, that is, it has to come from the standard distance, that is the standard representation of the ring. What you are instead doing is you are stretching the spring. Okay. So once you stretch the spring and release it, the ball, as long as it is stretched out, will go inside and come outside. So this will make a oscillation with respect to the standard position of the ball. You understand what I'm trying to convey now? Everybody can imagine that you are pushing the ball. You are pushing the spring and the ball connected to it. So all this will get compressed. Or when you release it, it will come and expand and go back. Or you can also expand this ball and you can release. So it will compress and expand. So this is a wave which has a contraction. Okay, so there is a flexibility in the position. Sorry, there's flexibility in the spring, and there is a positional change in the ball. Altogether, there's a systematic wavy motion. You understand? How many of you have done the pendulum exercise in the school?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So the pendulum exercise is a different exercise, the same only, because the pendulum will be hanging. There we are using the thread instead of the spring. So when the straight position, you will mark it and you displace it to either right side or left side to some extent. And what happens? It will go left, right. It makes one round, then next round, and at the end, it will release the energy what is given to the ball slowly. So the displacement from the equilibrium position will reduce, and at the end, it will come and stay here. Let me. I really don't know how to use this, but anyway, let's see. Heating. Okay, so sorry guys, like I'm trying to find some interactive media. I don't know. Okay, oh my god. Okay, don't laugh at this because this is the one I can do now. Okay, so what this will have come, like it will come like this. It will come like this. So if you are pulling, this will go and this will come, then this will come here. This is one cycle. So what happens when the energy is released from the sphere, then the ball will come to this extent. Okay, then it is still release the energy. It will come at the end, it will come to the original position. Okay, now you know what is this? So this amplitude will be changing like this, like this. So at the end, it will be like this. So what happens? Your displacement, if you draw a graph, what happens? Like this. So from this extent, see, I'm not able to draw. Yeah. Any possibility? No, not able to draw behind this. That's what it is about. Otherwise, it has to come with a point. Okay. So this picture should be like this. So this is the equilibrium position. You all understand? Students?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So hope you are not criticizing my drawing. Anyway, this is the fate of the offline. This is the only thing I'm not comfortable with. Otherwise, it's fine. Okay. So now let's keep it. So the thing is that this is going to express. Okay. Anyway, I'll draw there. Okay. This is going to express a motion. So let us see what is this. I will talk about this thing in terms of some terminology which is important for you guys. Okay. In physics, the motion is the phenomenon in which an object changes its position over a time. So changing the position over a time, that is an important one. We are talking about the dynamics. Okay, this is the dynamics. This is a typical professional word we are using. Otherwise, you can say this as a motion. Okay, so mathematically, if you can represent this motion, what are the things it is required to mention a complete motion? That is, to begin with, we have to talk about the change in the position. That is what your displacement. When displacement, there is an event towards a particular direction, right? If you remove the directional property and only you take the extent of the changes, that is your distance. Distance is a scalar parameter and displacement is the vector parameter. Everybody knows this?
Yes, ma'am.
And once you are beginning with your displacement, over a time, you are able to get your tangent, your perpendicular, everything, no? So there you are getting your velocity. Okay, what is this velocity? For example, where is the whiteboard? Whiteboard. Oh, whiteboard will go. Okay. So I have to again. What is this? Yeah. Oh. No need. Okay. Is there anybody to retain the whiteboard? Okay. So what I was explaining is velocity. Okay. So for example, you have one center point and the radius, one ball. This is R. Okay. Now what you are doing, this is making a circular motion. This is supposed to be circular. Okay. What happens? If I draw one straight line here, this is the tangent in the point. If I draw one line, okay, this is the same motion. So this is your tangent and this is your perpendicular. And I do, like, suppose I go one by one. So every time you are getting one tangent. This is a R, and this tangent normally we take by dr by some parameter. That is your Cartesian coordinates. I say x. So when I take this tangent, this is your velocity. This is the displacement. This is your velocity. When you are going in a direction of velocity, then if again you take a tangent, that is your acceleration. Can you imagine that now? How the velocity is derived from the displacement? Because the displacement is driven by the velocity is derived from the displacement, but your velocity is, again, it's a tangent that describes the nature of your motion. Okay, whether it's a linear or it is a circular or whatever, and from there you are getting your acceleration. So your displacement, your velocity, your acceleration, everything is a time derivative. First time derivative is the velocity and the first time derivative is the acceleration. Here the second derivative is the acceleration. You can jump from R to A, you can jump from V to A, you can jump from R to V, then V to V. So anything is possible. Okay, so now we are using the term displacement, distance, velocity, and the speed and the time, because every derivative we are taking with respect to the time. That is what, for a motion, the important thing is identifying the displacement, understand the level of distance or the deviation, and the inherited properties like velocity and time. All these things with respect to the time evolution. Physics students, biology students, chemistry students, and mathematics students, all students should understand this. If anybody is not able to follow, just let me know. Okay, this is the basics you have studied in from your 8th standard to 12th standard, not a new thing. Okay. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
See, in the offline class, I see your face and I keep on talking because I understand whether you follow or not. But in the online, I ask you something and you follow me. Otherwise, it will delay. When you delay, we will find tough time to finish the content. If I finish molecular dynamics simulation within the syllabus, I will extend the class with the application of EMD, which is not there in the syllabus, but that will be useful for your project. So you have to cooperate with me, okay? If I see you that you are more interested, you are following me in my speed, we can easily finish off. Then I get more time to talk extra things to you. But if not, I have to stuck with the same thing and it will be really trouble to finish the content in time. So follow me, okay? And now the motion of a body is observed by attaching a frame of reference. This is another important concept in the physics. We are discussing a motion. Where we are discussing the motion? In the room, in the open air, or in the space, or within the box, anywhere. So representation of frame of reference is very, very important to describe a motion or to represent anything in the space to an observer, and measuring the changes in the position of the body relative to that frame with a change in the time. See, there is a change in the parameters. This change in the parameters are happening in a frame of reference, and that we are observing over the period of the time. So this is what typical meaning. So with respect to a frame of reference, we are observing the change in this parameter over a period of time. If an object is not changing relatively to a given frame of reference, then the object is said to be at rest, stationary. Either you can use the word stationary or you can use the word rest. That means it is not changing in its position in the space. To have a constant or time invariant position with reference to. So this is not moving with reference to the frame of reference. Okay. So you say the body is at rest or body is at stationary point. Okay. This is talking about the linear stuff. There is one more thing. The important parameter we have to talk about is the angular frequency. What is this angular frequency? Everything, when it is in a linear, it is very straightforward. But when it is making a circular motion, the theta, the evolution of the body with respect to an angular representation is required. So in that case, we have to go by the angular displacement over a time. Okay, so now similar to the linear displacement, we have an angular displacement, we have angular velocity and everything. The important point what you should remember is any revolution with a circle is taken care of by angular velocity. Okay, this vector, angular frequency, this vector is 2 pi by time. That is the total time taken to move or to complete one revolution. So normally 1 by t, we say it's a frequency. So this is 2 pi f. That's what the angular frequency vector is. Everything which is related to the 2 pi rotation. So 2 pi f. This also you should remember. Okay. Now we are coming back to this event. Okay. So now I explained the force on this system, spring system. The force with which the spring resists is proportional to the distance through which it is compressed or stretched. See, when you are stretching or when you are compressing, the spring should be flexible enough to adjust our force and react in proportional to our force. Suppose if I take one spring, normally you have a ballpoint pen and one spring is there inside. you take that spring, and between your thumb and the first finger, forefinger, you can press it, right? Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
But if I give you a very big, thick spring, and I tell you that you compress within these two fingers, you will not be able to, because the compressibility of the spring matters. Okay, so that is the resistivity of the spring to deform its shape. Okay, so this force, whatever it is always proportional to the displacement. So if you are able to push it too close to the wall, then you will have a more displacement. Accordingly, you are supplying the force. So the force you apply on the ball is proportional to the displacement. But here, who is the controlling factor? The displacement of the ball is controlled by the spring, the nature of the spring. Okay, so we have to change the proportionality by a equal sign, and this proportionality is assigned with a spring constant. So the spring constant, if you include, and the force, you will be applying a force towards the wall, but the ball will come out. So whatever you supply, that reaction is in the outside, that force is in the opposite side. So this force is minus K into X. It's a simple representation of a ball connected, one end of a spring connected to a wall, and the other end is connected to a ball. Okay, so the force is proportional to minus K into X. Anybody has any doubt on this?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now we say this is the Hooke's law. What is the Hooke's law? The Hooke's law talks about the spring forces, and the force is proportional to the displacement, and that is minus Kx. Everybody, it is a very important question. We say this as a Hooke's law. And now the Robert Hooke, who is the person? He is the person who designed this or who derived this formula. We see he's an English mathematician and natural philosopher, and this guy has built these microscopes and telescopes. Okay, so this just to show him. So the direction, the important point, the direction of the spring force is always opposite to the direction of the stretching or compression of the spring. Hence, we put the minus sign. So in the PPT, you can have all the answers. Okay. So now, when this spring comes, normally we say it's oscillation. So the end result of oscillation is a wavy motion of the ball with respect to some equilibrium position. Can we imagine the motion like this? Okay, then this is your compression. Actually, it should move. Okay, this is your compression, then it comes here, then it comes here. This belongs to this belongs to this, and this belongs to this compressed, and this the normal. Normal spring, compressed spring, elongated spring. Every transition is via normal state. Okay, so let us begin with you push, you have this. You push, it expands. When it is stretching too much, so this is 2x. So there is a motion, which is this, you talk about the displacement within a time frame. It begins and it is compressing, coming back, expanding and coming here. So when you consider this, is one complete cycle to begin with, and it is ending. Probably in the picture they say they have taken this point to this is one complete cycle. For understanding, we'll do this. From here to here, it is one cycle, that is capital T. Okay, if you take the reciprocal, that is 1 by f, that is a frequency. So normally frequency is omega, angular velocity, divided by 2 pi. These are all the basic equations in physics. And we have the angular frequency W constant is equal to, here the displacement is also proportional to the mass. So the proportionality is when mass increases, this angular frequency decreases. That's what the mass is in the denominator. Okay. So the proportionality, they have find some constant, they have put it. This is the derivation for the angular frequency. Okay. So now the linear frequency, angular frequency. Okay. Coming back to the same, when we explain, when we understand such kind of motions, we come to a term called a simple harmonic motion. It is a motion which is expressed in a periodical way with respect to a reference position for a particular time. The simple harmonic motion, when I say, it is a type of motion by a spring when it is subjected to a linear elastic restoring force. So the restoring force, we say Hooke's law, and the motion explained, we say it's a simple harmonic motion. Here we are seeing a sinusoidal wave. The resultant path of the ball in the space is a sinusoidal wave. Okay. Now, coming back to this. Okay. Now we have to talk about the simple harmonic motion. What is this? Let us come from here. Then I will come here. Okay. From here we will come back here. So we know the second equation, Newton's law of second law of motion. What is that? What is the first law? What is the second law? What is the third law? Newton's law of
F is equal to ma.
What is that?
F is equal to ma, ma'am. So second law.
What does that mean?
That means force is equal to change in momentum per change in time.
Okay, this force is proportional to the acceleration, but the proportionality is controlled by the mass of the body. So this force is equal to ma. That is fine, na?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So when you are able to accelerate, there is an immediate supply of the force. When you are supplying the force, there is an acceleration is changed. Okay. So the same force we already learned from the Hooke's law, that is minus kx. So we can equate this two equation. Ma is equal to minus kx. What is the important thing? We want to understand the acceleration. Because acceleration is the one, velocity is giving the tangent, acceleration is the one giving the motion. So we have to talk about this acceleration. So the acceleration is minus k by mx. Okay. So now is this, we have to write this equation. A plus k by mx. Understand? You are able to understand what is this A plus k by mx? A is the second derivative of the displacement. So A is the dv by dt, and dv by dt is what? And velocity is what? Dx by dt. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Students?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There is no need for me to write. No, again it will be a mess if I start writing. Huh?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am, no.
Very good. So the thing is that now you are writing what is A, d square x by dt square, and this is in the other side. So you have to do this. That is d square x by dt square plus k by mx, that is equal to 0. And if you solve the second order equation, this x is a cos omega t. What is this a? What is this omega? What is this t? So the displacement, whatever we are getting x, is the amplitude, that is the radius of the circular motion, harmonic motion. And omega t is the angular frequency. And the time, how long it took to represent this this wave. So a basic simple explanation for a simple harmonic motion is a wavy motion. Okay. This is a sinusoid. If the wave starts from here, it is a cosine wave, right? So only pi by 2 lag is there between the cos and the sine function. Okay, so it is a periodic motion and it is oscillatory, represents itself in time, takes place over a limited spatial range. Okay, so periodic means it will repeat its original position. Oscillatory means it will have a positive direction and a negative direction, so it will have its own space to express. Okay, at the end we will talk about what is this simple harmonic motion. Okay, so the F is the only force acting on the system, and the system is called as a simple harmonic motion. So there, when some motions, when you are applying on the system, you should be very careful that there should not be any other motion. Okay, so during your practicals, but anyway, you have done this pendulum, okay, exercise. So that time you know that you have to stretch the pendulum in one particular direction. You should not give any more impulse on this. That is the importance of the pendulum practical. You know, the teacher will give you a demonstration just by pulling the pendulum in one direction, not in a different direction, because it has to cross the same X line. There is no Y deviation. Okay, so the motion can be only in the same line. So you make sure that you are only giving the symbol, you are giving the force to express only the simple harmonic motion, and it undergoes simple harmonic motion, that is a sinusoidal oscillations about the equilibrium point with a constant amplitude and a constant frequency. But now, why the simple harmonic motion is stopped after some time? Okay, so when you are releasing, you know, it is coming to its original position. Why? Because there in the environment, we have some factors to stop this motion. What are those? This air, presence of the air. Okay, so now that air is providing a frictional force to the free motion of the ball. Okay, which is proportional to the velocity, and that stops or that retards the level of displacement from this side to it is decreasing, and this will come and get stopped. So the frictional force is the one which is trying to hamper the evolution of the harmonic oscillator. That's what, if a body that explains or that express a simple harmonic motion, and at 2 points later, if it comes to a single point, we say the motion is a damped motion. But if the simple harmonic motion is, what is that, executed in a air-free or in a vacuum environment, the ball keeps on doing this. Okay, so it's an undamped oscillation. Okay, so the decay exponentially to the equilibrium position without oscillation, that is overdamped. Sorry, the underdamped. Okay. If an external time-dependent force is present, the harmonic oscillator describes a driven oscillator. So there is some changes. So it keeps on doing this one, simple harmonic motion. The displacement is A, x is equal to A cos omega t. So, yes, this is what the frequency I explained in the class. So this is the two-dimensional representation of the simple harmonic motion. It starts from here, it comes here. So 1 cycle, 2 cycle, 3 cycle, it goes on. So what is the amplitude you talked about? That is the A cos omega t. How it is coming? Because the angular velocity, that is omega t, that angular velocity is taking care of this. So this A cos omega t. And now frequency I explained. Here the same, the resolution, when you take the first derivative, cos theta will become minus sin theta, and this is the second derivative. Okay, this is the acceleration, and now you have to go with the natural frequency, k by m. So work done, what is the work done? The force into displacement. Yes, so force is equal to half into kx. That is half into kx square. Why? Because normally we say f is proportional to minus kx, and they have taken this derivation from the acceleration. So this is 1/2 kx. And this elastic potential is not required, but in the future we will talk about this, because when a system has some energy, it is like kinetic energy, relative kinetic energy, or rotational kinetic energy, and the potential energy, there is gravitational potential energy, and this elastic potential energy. All terms we have to explain when we talk about one single energy term of a single atom. So there are so many, we have to understand the components of the energy here. Okay, so I think this is the introduction. I will leave it, and you can, I will post it, but from the next class, I will talk from here, the slide 21. I think I will have to combine this with the Morse potential. Okay, so just until now, you have to understand the slide until now 24, slide number 24. So everything is known to you, everything is explained from the basic Hooke's elastic law. We are going to derive, already we have derived the simple harmonic motion and its amplitude and this one. You may understand what is the need of this knowing the simple harmonic motion. Probably in the next class you will understand. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Any doubt in this class? And today I will make a separate classroom for both of you, then I post it. Maybe next week only we will see you. Before that, in one tomorrow or something, you will get this content. And every class, I hope today you have taken the notes. You know, I will post it either today or tomorrow. And before the next class, you have to submit the what is that, your class notes. So Monday, Tuesday together, you make note and send me during the rest of the day.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, ma. Okay, thank you all. And tomorrow you have a conference, right?
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to follow. No, normally in this our center we regularly make it. After this corona, we are not able to make it. But when it comes, you have to make use of it. Don't switch on and go anywhere. Please listen to the content. You know, it is like it is an exposure for you guys to understand how people are thinking on a small problem. In what way they are able to approach. What are the the level of execution on a problem. It is he will be presenting one problem and he will explain you how he identified a solution for the problem. So that you should understand. You don't worry about whether that particular biology you don't know, but particular mathematics you don't worry. How he is handling the problem, in a bioinformatics way. All these things you should learn. Okay. So next, let's see you guys in the next week. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am.